Hello, hello. Welcome back from lunch. How you all feeling? All right, so we have a challenge. My name is Jessica, by the way. I work at Pendo leading our product operations and program management teams. And one of my colleagues is outside at what he has dubbed the festival stage. And he thinks that his stage is going to be way more fun than this one, and we have to prove him wrong. So you guys got to help me keep the energy up and excited and just really rolling. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's right. We're going to be way more fun. I am absolutely delighted to welcome you back to your first session of How I Pendo User Deep Dives. This is the Cultivate User Habits, Transforming Onboarding and Retention with Pendo. I've got two amazing speakers that are going to come out in just a second and give you guys a wonderful session. Quick question, though. How many of you have ever used Adobe software products? Okay, let's do this with noise, because I just like to make a lot of noise. How many of you ever used Adobe software products? Woo! Yes, so you're, I'm sure, going to relate to them as they walk through their experience. Our first speaker is Stephanie Dam. She's a retention marketing manager at Adobe. She's focused on creating programs that help marketing practitioners get started and get value out of the Marketo Engage. Bringing her blend of experiences and passion for empathy, she finds it gratifying to work with customers and share their story with Marketo Engage. Her partner presenter is Amy Chu. She's an experienced hybrid product marketing professional with a decade of experience in strategic planning, multimedia production, and project management. Currently serving as adoption and retention manager at Adobe, she empowers marketers to create effective engagement using Marketo Engage. Let's welcome to the stage Amy and Stephanie.
I'll park right next to it. You have this too. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. It's an honor to be standing here on the Pendomonium stage, obviously not physically standing because of my foot injury, but I'm so proud to be here and share our session and our learnings with you. Welcome to our session, Cultivate User Habits, Transforming Onboarding and Retention with Pendo. Today, representing the adoption marketing team at Adobe, we'll share our strategies to cultivate user habits. Along the way, we will cover how we Pendo and how we found useful in translating our marketing strategies in Pendo tactics. By the end of the session, I hope you get inspired and experiment one of our learnings in your own Pendo instance and start cultivating your user habits. My name is Amy Chu. I am currently marketing manager on the adoption and retention marketing at Adobe. I am based in San Francisco. Any San Francisco or Bay Area people here? Woohoo! I have been with the company for around 2 years so far. One of the reasons that actually drove me to this job is the opportunity to influence our users in product experience and help them adopt the product more by using powerful technology like Pendo. So to this day, I am still a big fan of Pendo's innovation and all these powerful features that it brings to the community. I will pass it on to my colleague, Stephanie, who's my partner in crime on the team, to introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Stephanie. I'm also on the adoption and retention marketing team here at Adobe, also based in San Francisco. I've been on the team for a little over 2 years, laser focused on creating programs for our practitioners to get started and get value. A little about myself is that I am driven by empathy, story, and meaningful experiences. This is something I take in both my personal and professional life, and I'm excited to share more about how I've taken this drive in my role as a marketer leveraging Pendo. However, before we get started, I'd love to learn more about the audience we have in this room. So, by a show of hands, how many marketers do we have in here? Okay, I see you. I see a couple. How about product managers? Okay. How about UX design or UX researchers? Wow. It looks like we have quite a mix with PMs in the lead, but regardless of role title, it is our hope that there is a learning or takeaway from everyone today. So what is product adoption at Adobe Experience Cloud? For context, Adobe is made up of 3 clouds: Creative Cloud, Document Cloud, and Experience Cloud. Experience Cloud encompasses products and solutions such as Adobe Analytics, Workfront, and Marketo Engage, so on and so forth. This is also where Amy and I sit. So how our team drives product adoption is that with the solutions and products our customers purchase, we aim to help them grow and thrive in their roles mastering these products. And we do so by delivering learning content through multi-channels post-sales. These channels can include email nurtures, events, webinars, and of course, in-product guidance powered by Pendo. After delivering the learning content and programs, we measure the success of our efforts through something we call the feature adoption funnel that you see here on the right. From the very top, at the time where they meet our target segmentation to be part of our audience in our programs and content, all the way down to what happened after they received the program and content. What did they do in our product? Did they try to use the feature? And if they continued doing so, to use it. More to come in the following slides on our feature adoption funnel. So out of the many solutions and products that make up Experience Cloud at Adobe, Amy and I specifically focus on driving adoption for Marketo Engage. If you're not familiar with Marketo Engage, it is a powerful B2B marketing automation software that aligns sales and marketing teams. Marketers specifically use Marketo Engage to create automated programs. And these programs can range from email, so for example, newsletters, engagement programs, so for example, nurture campaigns, events such as webinars, and default programs. Default programs can be used to create any of the previous programs listed, or they can also be used to create landing pages or registration pages with forms. Now I'll pass it over to Amy to discuss opportunities and challenges.
So as marketers who are working on user retention, we invest our time and resources in solving several business challenges. For those of you who are not that familiar with Marketo Engage, it is a SaaS business model, meaning that the subscription renewal decision is not just made by a buying group, but also how much value being realized within the customer's organization. And value realization sounds abstract, right? But essentially what it means to us is whether the experience that we provide exceeds customers' expectations. And so from a user adoption standpoint, a big part of this is whether the features that we offer to customers are being utilized or not. And business software like Marketo Engage can be complex for some of our users to adopt and master. At the same time, we all know individuals probably learn in a different way. So the non-linear learning journey is not something we can just offer like a one-size-fits-all solutions to cater to our customers. So all that to say, with Pendo, the opportunities that it can drive us is we are able to provide our customer enablement learning content to target a specific segment, post-sale, at scale, and point at time so that we can transform our onboarding and retention user journey to provide the help our customer need at the timing that matters to them. Just to bring it home, so how we Pendo, this is why you come to our session. We use Pando to develop user habits, grow core feature usage, and increase customer realization. So in the upcoming section, you will hear from us how we use Pando and the specific tactics to achieve these business goals.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Amy. And now let's get started. Starting with onboarding, because first impressions matter. I'll be sharing with you all today how we personalize the new user onboarding journey, leveraging Pendo's conditional branching and polls functionality. So before we jump into the how-to and a live guide demonstration, I'd like to discuss our strategy on how we drove forming a habit during onboarding. So with Marketo being a marketing automation software, the first core goal is for the marketer to launch and create their first automated program. But how do we take our brand new users from 0 to 100 in creating that automated program? So I'll share with you, upon first login with our users, we set them up for success during the setup moment. In that setup moment, we provide them personalized learning with guidance, ranging from a guided tour, tool tips, best practices, tips and tricks from our champion power users, as well as tutorials. Once we've set up our users for success, for them to be primed to experience their aha moment. The aha moment is exactly as what it sounds. It is the first thing that we need our users to do to experience a sense of meaningful value. Like, this is what I purchased Marketo Engage for. This is the value I see in it. And in this specific scenario for onboarding, that first thing we need the marketer to do is to create their first marketing program in Marketo. And after successfully creating that first program and experiencing their aha moment, that's what keeps them coming back and back again to create more programs, thus experiencing the habit moment loop. This all sounds very simple. However, without that setup moment for a brand new user to enter our product on an empty blank slate, it could be quite difficult to reach their aha moment on their own. There could be friction points and pain points along the way, and this is where guidance comes in to help guide them throughout each step to experience their aha moment. So with that in mind, let me show you better than I can tell you. So imagine you are a brand new user to Marketo Engage right now. What you're going to see upon first login is this welcome survey. And we've created this welcome survey and asked our users to self-identify their level of experience because we understand that not every user who receives a seat in Marketo and logs in for the first time may actually be brand new to Marketo. They may have used Marketo in a previous role and have some working knowledge and experience. And we want to make sure that the guidance we're providing them is actually the most relevant learning path for them. So what you see here is a welcome survey powered with polls and radio buttons, leveraging Pendo's functionalities, and depending on what answer choice that new user selects. So beginner, I'm new, help me get started. Intermediate, I have some working knowledge, show me what else I can do. Or advanced, I can explore on my own. These radio buttons are connected with a functionality called conditional branching. And depending on the answer choice that is selected, that will trigger the next best guide program for that user. With that being said, let's keep in mind what I had just shared about first login, setup moment, to reaching aha moment and habit moment. The next slide is going to go pretty quickly, but we're going to take that strategy and put that into practice. Oh, apologies. I'm going to show you how that moves. So if we take a look at this video GIF here, upon first login, a brand new user selects the beginner learning path. From there, we set them up for success, providing our power user best practices, tips, and tricks, as well as instructions on how to create their first program. Following those instructions, we anchor to the specific button that they have to click to get started in creating their first program, now priming them to be ready to experience their aha moment. Now, what happens after the new marketing practitioner receives the guide and creates their program? Let's take a look at results. So I'm pleased to share results in driving change in behavior for the audience that engaged with that in-product guide you just saw. That led to 81% first-time usage, meaning within 30 days of receiving that guide, 81% of the targeted audience created their first program in Marketo Engage. Well, that was nice to share. However, we understand that B2B solutions and our users are complex. Creating your first program is just the first step or first mile we need our users to do to experience a sense of meaningful value. There is still a number of core features to master during this onboarding stage. And what we've done here as a team that you see in this visual is thoughtfully strategize that onboarding journey for our brand new users to master those core features. So if you can follow along with me on this depiction. What you just saw right now was the brand new user. We welcome them with the welcome survey. Assuming they choose the new beginner's learning path, they got triggered that create first program guide you just saw demonstrated, and they've created their first program. So what happens next with the remaining core features? We have guide sets dedicated to each core feature. These guide sets contain best practices, tips and tricks, use cases, and how-tos from our champion users. However, we don't just overspam our users and trigger all these guides at once. These guides are triggered based on in-product behavior and intent. So intent and in-product behavior is determined by what are they doing in the product. So if we see that someone shows interest in creating an email program, meaning they tried to click on the button to create an email program, or they landed on an email program page for the very first time, we will activate an introductory guide set on how to get started with email programs, best practices, tips and tricks, and walkthroughs. Of course, it is amazing if after they receive our program, they go straight into successfully creating their email program. That will happen for some of our users. However, we understand that will not seamlessly happen for every one of our users that receive that program. And because of this, we have reactivation guides for timely reminders. Meaning, if we see that someone tried to get started on creating an email program, but they didn't move it across the finish line and complete the workflow within 30 days, we have dedicated reactivation guide sets to remind them to continue where they left off and complete that action. However, these reactivation guides serve more than just a nudge or a reminder. They also contain additional learning content to help guide our users across the finish line. And of course, we have dedicated guide sets for each of the other specific core features. These core features are determined based on mixed methods research, from user interviews, surveys, as well as a quantitative analysis by our data science team on what features to focus on that drive impact to retention during the onboarding stage. Now, I'll pass it over to my colleague Amy to chat more about reactivation guides and timely reminders.
So now you just heard about the onboarding approaches that we took as a team. Well, we all know that customers enablement is not something just like a one-off effort. If that is the case, you and I probably can take much more PTOs throughout the year. So in this section, I'm going to cover a few different ways how we continue to cultivate user habits with timely reminders. So why people need reminders? Because repetition is the mother of all learning. So academic studies have shown that smart repetition incorporates memorizing the information, being exposed to the information at different stages to help you retain that. And so good spaced repetition involves learning the information at just the right interval. So here you can see in this specific chart, a higher percentage of your memory is retained as you repeat it, and as learners get exposed to those information repeatedly, as they progress with different intervals in between, the higher percentage of that memory is retained. So it's that repeated process that help users retain the information a lot more effectively. So ideally, the more difficult concept would be repeated more often than easier concepts. So the better that you understand something, the less often you need it to be repeated. So with this academic findings and theory, I'm going to demonstrate how I translate this into my in-product strategy. So first of all, to help people learn by repetition, I use in-product guides to gently nudge our customers when they haven't engaged with our features cover after they engaged with our in-product guides. So the thinking here is when users, they prioritize learning certain features, it's when those features bring value to them. So if they are engaged with our guides, but they are not using the features for the past 30 days, which is where we measure for the initial activation stage, to me, it indicate either they forgot about that tip to perform that action, or they haven't seen that value being come across in that communication. So how I selected these core features is I selected them based on the usage analysis that our data scientist team has done for us using the Pendo data sync. In addition, I also referenced the qualitative feedback collected through our user interviews to understand why users prioritize or deprioritize learning certain features. One of the reasons why they don't adopt certain features is they don't come with clear value to them. And this is very often where in companies, they measure the effectiveness of adoption by the number of releases versus the impact on users. And so that said, this is why I developed this repetition workflow. As you can see in this infographic, this is one of my example programs where I correspond my guide delivery specifically to the framework that we measure our feature adoption. So I correspond specifically the guide trigger to 30-day and 60-day, and then 90 days for that delivery. Next, I am going to show you another tip that I find really helpful. I don't just nudge our customers without thinking about whether this is helpful to them or not. So to ensure customer find this is helpful and friendly versus intrusive harassment, I also implemented these strategies to collect user feedback by capping my reminder guides to avoid reminders being unhelpful to them. So how I Pendo this? I executed helpful and unhelpful buttons in my in-product guides and follow that by 2 questions poll. Why this is helpful? Because this helps me gauge user sentiment. I also get the signals to manage my guide delivery at scale. So how I applied this to my guide is I pause my guide delivery to those customers who self-identified themselves, for example, being knowledgeable enough about this specific tip, or they simply dislike receiving learning information in product, etc. But essentially, this allows me to collect that feedback to understand user sentiment on this specific repetition tactic. So in the following slide, I am going to demonstrate to you how this user flow will be looking like in product by showing you the specific segment that I built. First of all, this is how I define the segment rules with usage criteria. So don't be afraid of making complex segment rules, because this is actually the opportunity for you to refine your targeting and deliver more content relevancy. So my tip here is using the usage signals to trigger your guides. This is an example that I Pendo in my own reminder guides. In this specific segment, I incorporated the product actions such as visit CRM integration page as the signal. This indicates how consistent my Marketo Engage administrators are to audit their integration performance page. Why does this benefit me? Because as marketer, this allows me to target my messaging at a specific cohort to activate my guide when the specific user cohort have not performed the behavior that I am looking for. My second tip here is adding nested segment to avoid repetition. Why I'm doing this? I like nested segments so much because it helped me drive more consistency and less duplication. So being able to use more sophisticated targeting, such as the guide engagement and product usage, triggers, this allows me to still being able to simplify my segment rules. So by using some of these core segments that I can identify my user attributes in the parent segment, I can still keep these rules simplified in the parent segment. So even if you are using any sort of like static list upload to create your audience segment, nesting segment is still a very helpful way to really keep your segment tidy, and you are able to modify your segment as needed to avoid touching the whole parent segment. This is an example of one of my reminder guides where I use nested segment. On the left, you can see the non-low adopters category. I have a few different cohorts where I define as non-use before, low usage, and no feature click. On the right, you can see for churn users, I use nested segment to help me group those attributes for those who only use it once or only use less than once. So this is just a quick way for me to see how I can keep them tidy, but also maintain them for the long term. A pro tip here is if you use nested segment, I also get to measure these smaller cohorts in the dashboard to understand how each of these cohorts perform and make my changes in the segment when targeting needs to be adjusted. So as we anchor features for our customers to learn, we also have to account for how our customers want to learn. So we talked about this earlier in our introduction. Individuals, they just simply learn in different ways. So it is not a linear journey for everyone. So for most of our users, the learning journey, we need to account for some sort of a flexibility for them to learn the features that matter to their business use case the most. So how I Pendo this is I created polls and the default path to give our users the opportunity that they get to choose what type of content that they want to prioritize with. So an example of the program that our team created with this tactic implemented is we created 5 different topical streams in our intermediate level user nurture. This is developed with a default path with a sequence that we predefine based on our historical knowledge of how popular the topics are to our customers by research. Additionally, we also offer the poll to customers so that they get to select which specific topic that they want to focus on the next. So meaning that they get to choose if they want to pick topic 1 and then topic 3 or jump around depending on their priority. So let's take a deeper look at these segments. This can look really complex, and I know you probably can't really see the text, but essentially what we are doing here in this rule definition is we have both options built into our segment rules. Option 1, we have those poll responses built into our segment to allow the users to select how they want to proactively learn as entry point. Additionally, the default path that we built here essentially provide customers who are maybe less proactive or having no knowledge about what they need to focus on next, that like sequential default path for them to learn. What are the key results that we are seeing? On the left, you can see a couple of these key feature usage metrics that we are tracking with our metadata and usage-based triggers implemented. We are observing from a 13% to a 20% of feature lift within the 30 days of that guide engagement. At the same time, with the flexibility that we offer, this is a breakdown of how the customers get to flow into this program by different options that we offer. Before we have this implemented, we're seeing around 44% of the first-time usage rate within the 30 days of guide engagement. After that, we see a very consistent volume around 42%. At the same time, we see we are able to double the user volume to engage with more customers who simply just have different learning preferences. And by doing this, we capture a larger pie. So now we talked about all these different strategies and tactics that we use to help our customer cultivate their user habits. We'll continue sharing how we drive that habit reinforcement for the 90 days after that initial engagement.
Yeah, thanks so much, Amy. So today we covered a multitude of functionalities from how to create and build guides to how to build meaningful segmentation. Now let's cover how we track and measure success of those programs once they go out for 90 days. So habit reinforcement for 90 days. What you see here on the right is what our team calls the feature adoption funnel. As you can see, our team loves frameworks, and this is our measurement framework. So let's go through each of these stages. The audience, defined as those who meet our target audience segmentation for that specific in-product guide program. Reached is defined as, from that target audience, did they try to advance to the next step in the guide? From those who advance to the next step, engaged is measured by, did they actually complete the whole in-product guide program? Did they interact with the content CTAs? From those who interacted and completed the program, first-time usage is measured as, after they've completed, did they actually try to use the feature or functionality that is mentioned in that program? And then sustained usage is defined and measured by, for those who tried to use it for the first time within 30 days after completing the program, did they continue to use it at least once every 30 days for 3 months, hence the 90 days. With all that being said, this is our framework. With the top 3 metrics, audience, reach, and engage, you can easily pull those within the guide metrics of your in-product programs. We won't be demonstrating that live today, but happy to share offline if interested. What we will be sharing in the following slides is how you can pull those usage metrics directly within Pendo.
So before we go into measurement, it is important that you tag the right features to lay your foundation right. So I cannot emphasize this more because you do need to have your governance and training in place to develop the right tagging and auditing guidelines for your internal Pendo users. So for our team specifically, as we joined the team, we went through the training with our power users, and we had hands-on experiences in product to master that knowledge. So for me personally, I find it super helpful when you get your hands dirty by just looking at the tags and verifying it in your product to understand how the events are triggered. When you have doubts, the tip that I have for you is create yourself as a visitor and the single segment, so that once you perform the action in your product, go back to Pando and set yourself as the segment and look for that specific record activity in your dashboard. That way you get to see whether the rules that you tag are legit or not. When it comes to ownership of the tagging and auditing, it is important that you have collective efforts within your organization. For us, we as the program owners that runs these measurements, we work with our governance and our product managers collectively to ensure our guides are using the right rules and being tagged and labeled so that across the Pando organization, we know who are using the right tags or not. So if this is a new topic to you, the first thing that I will do is go download Pando Tagging Aid if you have not already. This is a very helpful and handy tool for you to get to see the snippet in the backend code and what can be tagged to trigger that unique event.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. +1 to everything Amy just shared on tagging. Tagging is so critical and foundational for many of the features and analytics within Pendo. So for the segmentation rules you had just seen that we demonstrated earlier, those are only possible on in-product usage based on the proper tagging in place. The features we're about to demonstrate next also rely on great tags. So the next slide is going to move pretty quickly, so try your best to follow along with me on the video. But I'm excited to demonstrate one of my favorite and easy features to use in Pendo. It is called setting guide goals. So setting guide goals for a snapshot of progress. Here you can see on the left, I can set my guide goal, clicking on a feature after viewing my guide, and with the proper tags in place on that specific feature, I search for it here, and within seconds, the adoption rate will populate, and this is the percentage of those who tried to click on the feature after viewing my guide. You can see that was very easy and simple to do, and it is, but you have to have the proper tags in place to do so. This is one of my favorite features because as a marketer launching programs, I regularly want to monitor the performance of my programs. How are they performing on a weekly basis to get that snapshot? With that being said, if you want to dive deeper into the performance of your programs and what your users are doing and the path they are following, a great feature to add on is funnels.
So funnels gives you that holistic view of whether users are following your expected route or not. So if you're thinking about whether this is right for you, think about how important it is for you to measure that specific route as your success metrics. For me, how I like to handle this is I map out the journey with the key product features that I want to see from an adoption standpoint, and I like to see from the page level to feature click view to understand where the users fall off the route. So this provides me with insights into where I could address next from an adoption perspective. And again, the feature tags that you created and audited before will ensure you are getting the right signals or route. So this is just a quick view of one of the examples of the funnels that we created in our programs for ongoing journey tracking.
So we've covered a multitude of features today. So to take it all home on what features you can get started on right after this session. So on personalization, we encourage you to take a look at your current programs. And is there a way to personalize them by baking in polls with radio buttons and conditional branching to trigger the next best guide step for your users? Our second key takeaway is all about segmentation in two angles. First, taking a look at your current segments, can you enhance them with metadata and usage-based triggers to hyper-personalize who gets those in-product programs, triggering the best programs that are relevant to them? The second angle to enhance your current segments is that if you aren't already nesting segments, we encourage you to consider nesting segments. Nested segments are a great way for you to repeat, reuse, and easily edit and modify segmentation without having to manually edit each line of your filters and triggers for each segmentation you have.
And not last but not least, we touch on the billion tools that we like to use for a quick measurement and insights discovery. Guide goals and funnels are what we like to use in our own work, and we found that useful for us to measure the end product guides' impact on our customers' behavioral changes. The first thing first, you need to make sure getting the right signals by tagging your features properly. So really invest your time in tagging and auditing with Pendo so that you prevent your team from being steered to the wrong direction with the false alarms or false positive. So that is the end of our session. We would love to hear from you about your comments, feedback, suggestions, or any question that you may have. Thank you for coming.
Looks like we have some hand raisers.
Okay, do we have any questions? We've got time for probably one question, maybe two. One over there? Oh, one over there? You're closest to a mic, so you win.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm putting down my laptop here.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Radha. I'm from FreshBooks, which is out of Toronto. Question for you is, why did you go along the route of beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and then into the 5 product areas, rather than doing something like a check mark completion? Try this checklist in order to do your onboarding. I've seen that in other companies as well.
Yeah, great question. So what you had just seen, the beginner, intermediate, advanced, that was one onboarding program. And then the 5 topics was actually the intermediate journey. So that wasn't actually part of the onboarding journey. The reason why we did that is that each of those paths actually have its own checklist of topics to complete, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, we also divided up our programs by persona. So meaning that for certain user persona, it could be more relevant to use a checklist to onboard. So we do offer those content through those onboarding and product guides. And versus some of the customers' persona that we focus more on delivery the content straight in their workflow to help them complete those actions.
So it almost sounds like this is reducing the friction, as in like, just see what the first priority is first, and then move them along through that as well. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that, think about what you saw in the welcome survey as an umbrella program. Within each of those answer choices, that branches out to multiple streams on different topics.
Okay, awesome. We have time for one more quick question, then we're going to wrap up and go to break. I see a hand over here. Laura, I think, is going over there to hand a mic over.
I was curious how you guys maintain onboarding material, because I know that's something we've talked about at our company, and it's instantly outdated, and that's why we haven't used Pendo. So I'm just curious how that kind of flow happens.
Yeah, that's a great question. So onboarding is ever evolving. So even after launching the program you just saw, we continue to monitor it on a weekly basis, right? So seeing where drop-off is and seeing if that step still makes sense and how we can improve and optimize it. And then when it comes to the content, right, as we have new features and new releases that impact our onboarding features, we try to refresh that content as quickly as possible. We try to make that our content that is presented in onboarding is not outdated. So if there is an enhancement, for example, to email programs, we make sure to get on it with our product and product marketing teams to ensure we have the right messaging incorporated into the refresh of that guide step or program.
Definitely. And then another thing to mention is for us, because that always evolving strategy, we also make sure we are very intentionally about whether we're creating new guides or not, or whether we should incorporate the new releases or enhancements into the existing guides. So that just to make sure our customers are not always being bombarded with guides when they log into their product.
And to extra add on to that, We are very lucky to have a strong partnership with our product and product marketing teams. So we meet with them regularly, and we're always staying up to date on the newest releases when they're happening and preparing for that to update our content before it becomes outdated.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's give them a great round of applause. Thank you, ladies, for a wonderful presentation.